think, honestly, for especially a lot of Black-owned businesses or smaller businesses, podcasting or being on a podcast is a unique opportunity for them to market themselves where they might not have that opportunity in traditional avenues. Like when you think about having to give a pitch or you think about having to network, where are you going to have the opportunity to be broadcast about your business, your service, your product to, however big this episode's audience may be, where people are actually listening and they're stationary or they're doing, X, Y, and Z versus you having to, talk to maybe you go to a network event and maybe talk to 10 people or you may have 10 people come up to your table for an 8-hour event. So I think podcasting has really opened up that lane for people to reach not just people in their immediate area, but across the world, giving them exposure, access, and connecting them with other people who may not even know something like that existed,
What up, though, Black Friday family? Welcome back to another installment of the Black Fridays podcast. Today, I have another very special guest for you all, and this time we doubling up. So I have Shy and Germaine from the New Kids podcast. How y'all doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Appreciate y'all pulling up to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So can you introduce us to who you are individually and then also what is the New Kids?
Sure. I'm going first. Yeah, sure. All right. So I'm Shyriah or Shy. I am an entrepreneur sometimes and a student full time, as well as have a regular corporate job. And then I work with Germaine on our lovely podcast called The New Kids.
And I'm Germaine, also known as Maine, also known as Dr. Maine. I'm an author, grant writer, consultant, entrepreneur. And I have a regular day job in addition to doing all of the New Kids stuff that we do. So, yeah.
Love it. And so I'm curious because the podcast called The New Kids, but y'all been doing this for a while. So I believe y'all on season 7 now. That's about to introduce season 7. How many years does that equate to?
I want to say 2015.
I was going to say 2014. So around there.
Yeah. We probably started the idea in 2014 and then actually started the show and everything in 2015. So it took us 7 months just to figure out a name. So
we came up with everything else before we came up with a name. We was looking at different languages.
Yeah. We went French. We was like, we can speak a little French. It didn't work.
How'd y'all settle? So how you settle on New Kids?
I think it was partially just we were new to podcasting and it was we're new. And then it was the New Kids. And I was like, well, obviously there's a music group with the other part of that name. Right. So we just had to, make sure it would be okay.
A little less melanated.
A little less melanated, a little more crazy, but it all worked out. We settled on the New Kids and then we had to figure out what avenue we were going to take the podcast, who we want to interview, all that stuff.
Because we kind of had an idea of what we wanted to talk about, but then it was okay, who do we interview? How do we present the idea to them so that they understand this is what we want to do? We want to bring you on. Because around 2014, podcasts, they were out, but it wasn't as saturated as it is now.
Yeah.
Right. And that's another point that I want to follow up on because you got in earlier to the podcasting game than a lot of people did back in 2014 when I feel like it was really it was only a few people that was doing it for real and then also doing even less people doing it at a higher level. So what changes have y'all seen in terms of podcasting in general since 2014 to y'all still doing it in 2023?
I would say now I've see that a lot more podcasts have their specific areas. I feel like at first it was just kind of people talking.
Yeah, free for all.
I mean, some podcasts are still like that, no shade, but but it is what it is. And then also longevity. A lot of the podcasts that I did know of back then are no longer doing it. So I guess that would be a big change too. It's just that people are starting to either go other directions or there's a lot of stuff that they call podcasts that I'm I don't know if that's really a podcast. What do you think?
I think too, how people structure their content. I think that when we first started out, it wasn't as scripted or people, you could tell that a lot of podcasts didn't follow standard format. They just kind of talk over the mic. And so as podcasting grew and people developed, they started realizing that, okay, you need to kind of have more of an outline or at least a script of how you want your guests to respond to the questions. And then, of course, the video content. You know, when podcasting first started, there was not a heavy presence of video. It was just straight audio. You may get some video clips or pictures, whereas now you have the partnership with YouTube, and a lot of podcasts have kind of pivoted to, you know, primarily focus on the video content that they're producing.
I think even with us too, like we didn't always have like the scripts and the questions and the segments. We were just kind of, we're like, we're gonna do what we want to do and see if people listen to us, man. It works.
And they've been rocking with you.
Yeah, ever since.
So what would you say that the New Kids podcast has grown into? Like, what would you, somebody who's gonna listen to this interview and then go check y'all out, what should they expect?
It depends on what season they listen to.
Yeah, because some of our seasons were kind of chaotic. I think for the podcast itself and for our overall message, we always have tried to highlight millennial Black business owners and entrepreneurs, and having them utilize their voice to talk about their journey, what they learned, what they wish they could have done differently, and how all of that plays into their future. And so we've tried to keep that consistent without all our seasons, even though some of them are a little bit off the wall. Yeah. There is that messaging in there where it's like, you know, this is where so-and-so started versus where they are now. They may have changed their ideas, you know. So with people that we know who listen to our show, they always tell us that they appreciate that consistency throughout our seasons.
Love it. Love it. So now that we got a little bit more about the background, I want to introduce y'all to my favorite part of Black Fridays, which is Freestyle Fridays. So I know both y'all. Yeah, huh?
I'm ready.
Well, hey, if you say you're ready, we can make it happen.
I need like 5, but I'll be ready next time. I got you.
Right. So you should be fine because this is just a random assortment of questions. They're all about y'all, so you shouldn't get them wrong. Okay. And I only got 2 rules. You answer each one. You answer honestly.
Okay. All right, let's do it.
All right, cool. So first thing I want to know is most random job that y'all feel like y'all ever had.
Ooh. Okay, I can go because I already got one off the top of my head.
Same.
First random job, or the most random job I've had, I was an inventory counter for this company.
Oh, I remember that.
And so basically I would have to get up like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, go to wherever store they assign me to for that day. So it could be like a Macy's, it could be JCPenney, it could be an outdoor store. And they would give me this little device that I would have to count every single item in the store.
Wow.
And we had a little slip of paper where we would have to write however many items were in that aisle. And then people would go behind us to check our numbers to make sure that our inventory count was correct. And they had all these rules, like you couldn't batch count. So you couldn't just scan one barcode and say, okay, it's 10 here. And this row is 10 here. Like you had to scan each single item in the store. And then you were paid based on like your speed versus how many items you counted.
Not hourly?
They had, it was like a standard hourly rate, but then they would add on, you know, for all of those different things. And I will never forget, they tried to send me to Port Huron one day.
Oh, no.
And not like, I got to the other bridge, not the Ambassador Bridge. And I was like, okay, clearly I'm not going the right way because I keep having to turn around. And the man in the little booth was like, ma'am, just go back.
Just go home.
Just go home. And so I did. And I quit that day because I was like, y'all tripping.
Interesting. Mine was I worked in a call center and I sold Highlights magazines, the little kids magazines. And we would have to like lock our phones in a phone box because we couldn't have them on the floor. Then we had to follow these very specific scripts, which was weird because they literally have a response for everything. And I would have to get 3 no's before I could hang up on somebody. And then like when you sold like a certain amount, like we were supposed to sell like 3 kits in an hour. And then once you got to like certain tiers, they would like give you different presents and stuff, which worked for me because I'm very childish and I wanted this little mystery kit. I was like, yes, I need that. But that was probably the most random job.
And then I want to know what's in your rotation right now. What's a playlist that you got? Some songs you got in heavy rotation or an album? Let's go album.
An album. Most recently, I would say R&B Money by Tank has been in heavy rotation for me.
I'm thinking. So probably Jaguar 2, Victoria Monet. I've been listening to that a lot lately. And the new Jameson album that just dropped.
I didn't know Jameson was still making music. That's what's up.
I actually added a song yesterday by Leon Thomas, and I didn't realize it was him.
Oh.
Like, I just heard it. So I was like, oh, let me look it up. And I was like, this is weird.
Leon got some heat.
He do, but I'm like, I'm still picturing the kid on Disney Channel or Nickelodeon, wherever he was
It's
on.
so crazy that all the clips they be posting to him on Twitter when they talk about his music is all old photos. I'm like, y'all can't find a current picture.
Yeah. He was on the Terrell Show.
I know.
That was a good episode.
What's a black business that you all favorite right now? That you either been buying a lot from or you just really feeling right now? What's a black business you'll shout out?
I'm gonna do two. I would say Harper Ray. I've been rocking with them for a while, and Mia Ray Glamaholic.
Okay. For me, it would be Ori Studio. Shout out to Jamie.
Yes, hey Jamie.
Love Ori. I have been with Jamie for years through all of her rebrands, all of her fragrances, but currently it's Ori Studio. So that's the fragrance brand I'm heavily rocking with right now.
Fire.
It smells so good.
Yes, it does.
I would love to know what's y'all plans. Y'all hit the lottery, $100 million, tax free. It's all yours. It's all profit. I want to know what's the first two things. No, let's go three. What's your 3-step plan for after you hit the lottery?
Okay, 3 steps. So first, this sounds cliche, but I really would do it. I would pay my 10% in tithes. I'm gonna get that out the way first.
Praise God.
Then I'm probably gonna pay off my debt, and then I will get a house. Wait, how much money I got?
Well, you gotta do the math, but the $100 million, it cleared your account. It's in there.
Okay. So then I would buy my mom a house and myself a house.
So of course getting rid of my debt, because the biggest thing is student loan debt. I'm trying to get away from that.
I don't even want to pay that. They can get that in blood.
There you go. There you go.
I don't know. I would probably buy land. That would be my biggest thing. Buy either a block or just a piece of land, either in Detroit or in Augusta, where my mom's side of the family is from. And then the third thing, I would go out the country. I'm out of here.
I knew it. I knew it. I was waiting on her to say travel. I'm like, if she don't say travel, I would be shocked.
I'm out of here. I'm either going to Ghana or somewhere I haven't been already. I just got to get away. Cause
if you go to Ghana, sign me up. You already know. We've been having this discussion since we became friends. Like, I'm going to Africa with her and her family one day.
For sure.
Yeah, I got to get out of here.
No, I feel you, because I have the same plan, because I know I will probably leave immediately, because as soon as certain family hear about get some type of win that you, it's a wrap. Like,
because I feel like in some states where they do allow you to hide your identity for a certain period or indefinitely, but some states you have to disclose certain pieces of your identity for reporting purposes, and I'm like, bro.
Yeah, because the IRS is coming.
Well, yeah, but you can do that privately when reporting your taxes. But some states have laws that if you win, because it's technically public money, so they have to disclose whatever. Yeah, I'm getting out of here.
I'm throwing my phone in Detroit River.
Okay,
I'm starting a completely new life.
Immediately. My mom always told me if she win the lottery, she's gonna do one phone call. If I miss that phone call, too bad.
That's it. That's it.
Mediterranean.
I told certain family members, I was like, if you get that, y'all get that call from me, just pack your bags.
Okay, we
no
out.
questions. Yeah, we gone.
Because the first question you cancel, you're out of here.
Right. You ask a follow-up question. That's it.
Okay, because you're out at this point. Why you got questions? Okay. You're out of here.
Why you worried? Let's just go.
And last but not least, if you all could be on any podcast out there that you listen to or any show that you like, what show would that be and why?
Do I only got to pick one?
Yep, just one. Like if they called you today and was like, we need you to be here tomorrow.
I'm going to go with The Read.
Ooh, I was going to say the same thing.
I'm going to go with The Read. I love Kid Fury and Crystal's. They were actually the first podcast I started listening to. So I would go with them. They're funny. They talk about serious stuff. And you get to cuss people out. I love to cuss people out. So.
Okay, so I'm not going to choose The Read.
You going to choose a true crime?
You already know. I know. So I listen to a lot of true crime. It's almost scary. So if I could listen, or if I could be on a podcast, it would probably be True Crime Garage.
And would you narrate, or Would you do they have like voice actors?
So it's hosted by, they have 2 hosts, and they pick like certain cases, across the country or across the world to talk about and kind of break down the facts. Some of the cases are solved, some aren't, but they try to bring light to a lot of cases that aren't like in public knowledge. So you might see some cases where the victim may be Black or other minority that don't get a lot of news press and stuff like that. So I would like to be a part of the conversation just to give my point of view and kind of bounce ideas of where other leads could be explored and things like that.
Dope. Very nice. Well, congrats to y'all for successfully passing Freestyle Fridays. Pretty straightforward for y'all. Didn't have no issues and confidence that y'all would get through it. So thank you for participating. And I wanted to go back into asking y'all more about the podcast journey from the standpoint of, anytime I talk to people nowadays about podcasting, like, it truly is an art form to be able to find your voice, and then also like the curation of it, the production of it. That's a whole nother process in itself. But I wanted to know, like, formulating from more so just focusing on like the conversations or type of people that y'all have on y'all show to now like y'all have a certain flow, a certain format that y'all go with. What was that journey like for y'all, and how did y'all end up on it where you are now and like that whole transition period?
It was an interesting journey.
Yeah.
Because we used to be like much more relaxed than we are now. So we would like have drinks, so we'd be eating food.
You'd be eating food.
Hey, we'd be eating food. So it really didn't have very much structure. But I think when it came down to like editing the episodes and really listening to them, we realized we were repeating ourselves, or we were running out of stuff to say, and we would just be looking stupid. So we kind of realized that we needed to change that and see what would work best for us, because we wanted to be open. We want people to be able to express themselves, but we also kind of want to like keep it on a certain track to make sure that it aligns with the rest of the channel and the episodes that we have.
And I think too, it also kind of evolved into us wanting to spotlight folks and give people an opportunity to talk about their work, whether it be their own podcast or business or service or whatever. And so as we started to think about what we wanted that to look like, it started becoming for us more of a conversation to say, how do we want the season to go? Like, where do we want to start versus where do we want to end? Who are the people that we feel would be the most impactful in this season that we think we can have a good conversation with, get good information, and engage with them, and hopefully open them up to a new audience.
Nice. And as far as the production of podcasting, so I know that you all used to up front do a lot of the manual work, the editing and getting the microphone, equipment, all that type of stuff. Yeah. Now you're in a better situation where you don't have to necessarily worry about that. Can you talk about like I don't want to make it sound bad or anything, but like the amount of effort that goes into that part of podcasting that people don't understand?
We was in the trenches. Okay?
The trenches.
Like when we first started out, we had a mic off Amazon. Did we even have headphones? I feel like we did not even have headphones.
And we only had one microphone that plugged into the laptop.
Mic, right. So the laptop would be sitting in the middle of the tuba and the guest.
Everybody leaning in.
Yelling over the table. So it was definitely a journey to get to where we are now.
We also didn't have a solid location.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we would be recording. We did a couple episodes in the library, which sounded terrible. We were at a clubhouse for a while. We were in an attic at one point in time. We had to keep stopping the recordings because it was hot as hell. And we had to like turn the air on, but you couldn't have both going at the same time. It was a lot. So now I think it's, now that we're in a studio or on a network, we can just always know where we're going to record and that the equipment is going to work. But
yeah, and then for me, like I was doing the editing myself, so I would have to I would have to listen to the full episode, figure out what parts needed to be cut, what I needed to trim, fitting in the music, fitting in different spots for breaks. So, and then we're on a deadline because we need to get the episode posted for consistency, and people need to be able to like tune into the new kids and know that they have something else to listen to versus it being like a long lull. So it's a lot of patience was required because sometimes I would be so frustrated trying to get something just right and it just didn't sound right. Because that's the other thing too, like sound quality. People have to be able to hear your guests, hear you, understand, no background noise, and that's hard to do when you are in a public space like a library or when there's an echo. So
yeah, because those offices, they're not built for recording. So like we were echoing and it was bad. And then I think it helps too that there's two of us. Yeah. So like she would do all the editing and stuff. I would write the episodes, book the guests, all that good stuff. Because I don't know nothing about editing. Y'all wouldn't heard nothing. If it was up to me, there would be no new kids if I had to edit it.
So I would definitely say that over time, of course, our sound quality has improved because now we have a more consistent area where the sound can be controlled. And I think just the quality of our episodes overall have grown as we've grown, as a podcast.
And you all talked about now being a part of a network, and I wanted to know more about your journey in terms of what it's like being a part of a network, because at least a lot of podcasters that I've come across in the city or around the city, they're independent. So I'm wondering, like, from your perspective, what has it been like being a part of the network and like some of the perks that you might get with joining the network?
I would say the biggest perk for us was the location. Like we know we can record there. So that was good for us. Of course, it being Black owned and being in Detroit was a big deal for us as well. And then just the aspect of community. And we can still be independent on ours. A lot of people that do work with networks, they don't own their podcast name and,
they lose
and
a lot
stuff.
Of creative control.
We have all of that. So
yeah, and I think like, to her point, the community, like we have other podcasters that we can go to if we're experiencing issues, or there may be something that didn't work for them that may work for us, and vice versa. So we have, other people that we can bounce ideas off of. We can, swap concepts. We can participate in events, or if we want to have a larger reach, we can pull in, other podcasts that we think may have a different audience than ours.
Dope. And I wanted to, this question I kept thinking about when I knew that we had this interview coming up. So one story that I've been following, or like a podcast, y'all follow B. Simone. Mm-hmm. So y'all might know where I'm going with this. So essentially, for people listening who don't have an idea of what I'm talking about or who she is, so her and her best friend, B. Simone, comedian and multifaceted media personality, her and her best friend created a podcast, Know For Sure, that lasted for, let's say, about a year and a half. And then they recently decided to split and go separate ways. And essentially, they even had an episode where it was a little off-putting, where they talked about their issues. It was super awkward. They tried to push through. It wasn't working. Like, one person was like, I'm all in. Let's try to figure out how to make the business work. The other person was like, I want to figure out how to make our friendship work. And then it just was not working out. Yeah. So they decided to part ways. And those were obviously two women figuring out and doing business together, had a lot of success in the period of time that they had. So I wanted to talk to y'all from the perspective, if you have any thoughts about that situation, number one, we'd love to be able to hear about that. But more importantly, we'd love to know, like, how do you all continue to maintain your relationship and not let the business part get in the way? Because just from interacting with y'all, the times that I have, like, I can tell that y'all genuinely friends. Like, y'all mess with each other like that. Y'all locked in. It's not just like, I mess with her because the podcast. Yeah, I'm a podcast friend. That's my work. Yeah, that's my little work friend.
Right, my work bestie. I think so. I have been looking at some of their clips. I never really listened to their podcast all the way, but I do know that they had disclosed a lot of what I would say is sensitive information on their past episodes and on the very awkward, weird episode. But I think that when I think about us and our podcast, we've always made it a point to put our friendship first. So if there's some stuff that like we don't feel like recording that day, or if she having a bad day or I'm having a bad day, we're very good at saying like, hey, we just gonna scrap this and we'll reschedule or whatever. So I mean, I don't know. I thought their situation was kind of weird,
and I feel like even though we are friends, we have a very clear line of separation between what's business versus what's not. So even though people see an aspect of our personalities in our podcast, it's not about our personal life. Like, we always try to focus it on the guests and, how whatever they're doing and whatever they're spotlighting. And then, of course, we talk about certain things or certain aspects that we want to share, but our podcast and our businesses, because we have other business ventures together too, those are separate from our friendship. So I think that's what really has helped us stay so consistent and stay so relevant with our podcast, because we know, okay, sometimes we need to stop and focus on the podcast. Other times, that's not even at the top of our mind. And we've also known each other for a long time. So I think at this point, like, our friendship has evolved to where we can kind of predict each other and our moods, and how, you know, an interaction is going to go before the other person even says something. So our chemistry works really well, and we try to use that with our guests too.
I think also too, it's not like we're on the podcast talking about our personal business.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you know, that makes it easier to separate the two. Whereas with their podcast, they were talking about their personal business and their lives. So when you don't have that anymore, it just kind of goes away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So needless to say, we don't have to worry about y'all having a podcast episode season 7 talking about arguing and going back and forth.
Absolutely
about y'all differences.
I already told her. I told her on Twitter, if we break up, I'm the real new kid. Period.
Oh my gosh, she's so petty.
So that's out there.
I be telling her she can't get rid of me. So even if we're not doing a podcast, I'm still gonna be showing up at her house. I'll show up at her parents' house. I do not care. I will show up everywhere. At her auntie house, wherever. At her job. It don't matter.
Now, in y'all experience, have y'all ever had any differences on the podcast as far as like one person wants a guest, the other person doesn't want that particular guest, or and how do y'all work through those differences?
Sometimes it works itself out.
Okay.
And we don't really have to like worry about it, but I feel like most times it's just like one of us will just give in and be like, whatever.
So there have been a couple situations where we've had differences, especially from the beginning till now. Mm-hmm. Like there used to be 3 of us that hosted the podcast.
Okay.
And that alone was a completely different situation that we did not see eye to eye on. But when it comes to guests, I think when we talk about it, like, because we keep a running list of who we want to, you know, who we think might be good for a season. And sometimes we may have to present that rationale, like, why do you think this person would be a good fit? And after we say it out loud, we're like, okay, maybe they might not be a good fit. But let's recommend it to somebody else that we know that, you know, they could be on their show. So honestly, after we talk through it, most of the time, like she said, it works itself out.
It's like doing a background check. Like, we'll be like, okay, this person has their own business. Cool. Then we'll look at their social media and be like, absolutely not. We will not be part of that. Yeah, it gets interesting.
Okay, y'all don't have no scammers on the show or nothing like that, have y'all?
Not that we know.
Not that we're aware of.
Okay.
Things change. Times get hard.
Hey, my personal information has been saved. So
yeah, I've been good. You know.
And you talked about you two have you have business ventures outside of the podcast together. What do those look like? And shout out y'all own businesses and the things that y'all do.
I'm gonna let you take this one. Take it away, friend.
So, outside of the New Kids podcast, the New Kids LLC is its own brand. So we do joint consulting under that sometimes, but we also have our separate consulting businesses or ventures different from that. And we've evolved the New Kids brand from a couple different things. Like we initially thought we wanted to do something in publishing because I'm an author, so we wanted to introduce that aspect.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. We've looked at like real estate and like what else? There was something else.
We did the wine.
Oh yeah, we have our own wine.
Oh damn.
Yeah. So we gotta bring you a bottle.
I was gonna say I came over empty handed.
So the next time we see you, we'll bring you a bottle.
For sure.
So we've put our hand in a couple different things. Still trying to figure out what direction we want the New Kids brand to go under. But of course, the podcast falls under the umbrella of that. And then I have my own consulting business. I have G Pencil Consulting. So I work with nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and small business owners in the city of Detroit under organizational development, grant writing, and project management. So my clients range from the Hooligans to Bruce Clifton, who does an organization called Autumn Sun. I work, again, with a lot of nonprofit organizations in the city as well. So,
I have a career coaching business or consulting, I guess. Yeah. So I do interview preps, resumes. I do business plans for now. That will likely change soon. I do a bunch of different projects, kind of just a little bit of everything. And then whatever I don't do, she probably does, and vice versa. So we
bounce clients back and forth. Like sometimes all the time. They may need something that I'm like, this ain't really my specialty, but Shyriah may have it, or she may know somebody else who works in that field. And then she may kick someone over to me after she's finished working, like, hey, I think Germaine will be really good, in helping you develop X, Y, and Z.
And how did both of y'all how did you walk down that path to go into the business consulting space in that kind of realm? And did y'all come to that separately? Did y'all kind of help each other come to it together?
It's kind of crazy because a lot of stuff we were working on at the same time, we just didn't know.
Yeah.
So like we met in middle school, but then we didn't like become friends again until after college. So once we became friends again, it's like, oh, we're doing all this kind of stuff. So we just started, bouncing ideas off of each other, and that's when we started like swapping clients and stuff. As far as for me in career coaching, I've watched my mom do it when I was a kid. She used to update everybody's resume. That was always her thing. So I'll just be sitting there being all in her business, and now I get paid to do it. So, so it works out.
Yeah, and I think for me, like I've always kind of been in the nonprofit space around my mom and my aunt. They started a nonprofit the year I was born. So that's kind of been my like introduction into developing nonprofits, helping people get from point A to point B. And then I know a lot of entrepreneurs, small business owners who there are resources available to them, but they don't know how to access them or they don't know how to navigate them. So for me, going through like my educational journey and all of the opportunities that I was exposed to, I felt like that was my opportunity to reach back to people who didn't have the information but needed it.
Dope. Very dope. And can y'all talk about the power of podcasting as it relates to some of these small businesses that you all work with? And because we're on Black Fridays, more importantly, Black-owned businesses, independent businesses, the power that podcasting can have or the impact that podcasting can have on their brands, their business, and so forth.
I think it opens them up to a different area or a different audience. So especially people that are maybe just doing like face-to-face sales, or if they have like a particular product or something that they're selling, I believe that podcasting gives them an opportunity to tell their story. And then I feel like if someone knows their story, they're more likely to do business with that person. So I think that would be probably my favorite part about doing the New Kids, is that we give these entrepreneurs the opportunity to tell their story, to start off in the trenches and tell us everything that they did to get out, and then to also inspire other entrepreneurs. So I think it's a good area of opening up opportunities for different relationships.
And I think, honestly, for especially a lot of Black-owned businesses or smaller businesses, podcasting or being on a podcast is a unique opportunity for them to market themselves where they might not have that opportunity in traditional avenues. Like when you think about having to give a pitch or you think about having to network, where are you going to have the opportunity to be broadcast about your business, your service, your product to, however big this episode's audience may be, where people are actually listening and they're stationary or they're doing, X, Y, and Z, versus you having to, talk to maybe you go to a network event and maybe talk to 10 people, or you may have 10 people come up to your table for an 8-hour event. So I think podcasting has really opened up that lane for people to reach not just people in their immediate area, but across the world, giving them exposure, access, and connecting them with other people who may not even know something like that existed,
Facts. And sticking in the realm of podcasts, I have a technical question for y'all, because in this day and age, it's almost like if you don't record it on video, it doesn't exist. But y'all are exclusively audio. So why no video?
Mostly because we do a lot of irresponsible things that probably shouldn't be on camera.
Yeah, and like
I'm normally eating burritos and stuff and doing all kind of stuff while we're recording. So
when we show up to the studio, most of the times we look very crazy. Like
we look like we've been through.
We are not prepared to be on video. We have explored the idea. We've talked about it with our network producers just to see, what that would potentially look like for us. But that also, like, a lot of our guests are not people who are comfortable on video. And that's some of the things that they've expressed to us. Most of the time, a lot of the people that we talk to, this is their first time ever being on a podcast.
Yeah.
So for them, it's kind of almost like an avenue of public speaking, and they get very nervous. So it's hard for them to not only speak in the mic and deliver whatever it is they're trying to say, but now they have to worry about the video component too. So I think we've been able to get away with it up to this point because a lot of our guests feel more comfortable that we don't have the video aspect. They feel like they can be a little bit more themselves, or just, be a little bit more relaxed in a situation without having to like worry about, being on camera.
And I'm curious as to, because I had a conversation about this not too long ago, but as far as like do you all pay attention to like your podcast numbers, your metrics, all those type of things? And if so, how do you like analyze those and say like, oh, we're doing good or we're doing bad? Like, if you could provide more context on that, because I feel like in this space, people don't talk about that enough. And then so you could think you're doing well, or you could you could think you're not doing well and you're actually killing it. And, just kind of what's your perspective on diving into numbers, analytics, and feedback? Because I know that y'all also get feedback from y'all listeners on the show, topics, people that come on, all that type of stuff. How do you take that into consideration?
We do look at our numbers, but we don't dwell on them.
Yeah.
I think podcasting, at least for me, is something that's fun. So I don't want to say I don't care about the numbers, but I just feel like, we want to get the episodes out there. We get good reactions from people and we enjoy doing it. So that's really more of what my focus is. We've done diving into our social media, analytics to kind of figure out, when should we be posting, who's actually looking, where are they from, which obviously most of them are from Detroit, but we do have a couple of other places. So it's interesting to see what are they looking at? What part of our podcast do they enjoy? And I've also used it as a tool to connect with other shows. So there was a show called Pilot Talk. I don't know if they're still doing podcasts, but they're from Baltimore, I think. And they were talking about how much they loved listening to the Detroit stuff. And I was just like, oh, wow, this is crazy. But that was all from just social media.
Yeah. And I think I pay attention to our metrics a little bit more because, when we start thinking about revenue, if we want to do sponsorships or ads, they want to know about our metrics. And then for us, it also gives us an idea of what guests our audience really appreciate or really like. Because we have some guests where we think it's just going to be a normal episode and it takes off. And we think it's a chaotic mess. And our listeners are like, oh my God, this guest was so great. And we look at the numbers and we can see how big the episode took off versus somebody that we think would be an excellent guest or excellent show, and it didn't really do what we expected.
All right, last but not least, definitely got to know, where do you all see yourselves in the future as far as the podcast goes, business-wise? Let us know what you see in your crystal ball, and we love to be able to put it out there and see it come back.
Millionaires.
Yeah.
We always joke about, we're going to be rich together.
Yeah. A little video, we're gonna be rich together.
But I only got $8. I feel like, of course, our voice will be even stronger than what it is now. Our goal with the podcast was to take other people's product, service, voices and elevate them. And we've seen that with our guests, where they started versus where they are now has grown exponentially. So as we continue to develop our brand as a whole and the podcast over the next couple of years, I definitely see us taking it to new heights. Hopefully to new platforms too.
Dope.
Agreed.
Nice. Well, I think that in our first time I met you all, you are over 70 episodes in, and I think we talked about the average podcast doesn't even get past 30. So y'all been doing the damn thing, been at it for a very long time. So definitely want to wish you well wishes moving forward with the show. I know that it's only going to get bigger and better from here as you all continue to pour into it and maintain the genuineness that you bring to the show. So I appreciate y'all coming on the Black Fridays.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So everybody watching, I'll tap in with y'all soon. Peace.